Good morning, everyone. Picture this: a quiet morning in Spokane, Washington. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue over the neighborhood. A decorated U.S. Army veteran, Bajun Mavalwalla II, has just bought a home for his family. It's a moment of triumph, a new beginning. But then everything changes. Imagine unpacking boxes, the smell of fresh paint lingering in the air, when suddenly there's a knock at the door. It's the FBI. They handcuff him and charge him with conspiracy to impede or injure officers. How could this happen? A man who fought for his country now finds himself in such a dire situation, not because of robbery or violence, but for participating in a protest against ICE. Back in June, Bajun was part of a protest that turned heated. A government van was vandalized and chaos ensued. But Bajun wasn't throwing rocks or slashing tires. He was marching, chanting, exercising his First Amendment rights. So why is he being charged? It raises a crucial question. Where does protest end and crime begin? The law the government is leaning on is 18 U.S.C. Section 111, which makes it a crime to assault, resist, or interfere with federal officers. Add in the conspiracy charge, and prosecutors argue that it doesn't matter if Mavalwalla himself never touched the van. If he helped plan or encourage the disruption, he's on the hook. But there's a big difference between criminal intent and constitutionally protected protest. The First Amendment covers shouting, marching, even fiery speeches. What it doesn't protect is actually carrying out or plotting violence or destruction. That's where the legal battle lies. To convict, prosecutors have to prove Mavalwalla agreed to interfere with officers and took a real step toward that goal. Just being present or speaking passionately isn't enough. His defense will argue his actions were expressive, not violent, and therefore protected. Courts have been careful about this before. In cases like Cox versus Louisiana, the Supreme Court made clear that even disruptive speech is protected unless it poses a real, immediate threat of violence. Judges know that if they start treating peaceful protest leaders as criminals for what others did, the chilling effect on dissent could be enormous. There's also the question of prosecutorial discretion. Federal prosecutors decide which cases to bring, what charges to file, and how aggressively to pursue them. That power is broad and controversial. In a case like this, where the evidence against the accused is thin and the underlying conduct looks more like speech than crime, discretion becomes a double-edged sword. On one hand, prosecutors can argue they're protecting federal officers and setting a deterrent example. On the other hand, it looks a lot like Overreach, using conspiracy charges to punish someone for being in the wrong place at the wrong time or for holding unpopular views. That's where the line between discretion and abuse of discretion starts to blur. When charging decisions seem more about politics or intimidation than about justice, courts are supposed to step in. So what's likely to happen? Unless the government has smoking gun evidence, like texts or recordings showing Mavalwalla planning violence, the case may be dismissed or significantly narrowed. The threshold for convicting a protester of conspiracy is high, and the First Amendment is a sturdy shield. Judges may also scrutinize whether prosecutors are stretching the law in ways that look punitive rather than protective. At the heart of this isn't just about one man's freedom, it's about the very fabric of our democracy. So, I ask you, how do we draw the line between protest and crime? And are we willing to let fear dictate our rights? Let's keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts below. Thanks for joining me today. Stay curious, stay engaged, and remember, your voice matters.